Thank you. It's a pleasure to see this room filled with leaders, professionals, and individuals who understand the value of being present in the right room and the right time. When we started the Hermes Expo, the idea was simple: bring people together with purpose. Because when the right people come together, meaningful things happen. Conversations turn into relationships, relationships turn into opportunities, and opportunities move our community forward. For over 3 decades, Hermes Expo has done exactly that, creating a space where business, culture, and communication come together in a way that is both strategic and meaningful. And what makes today especially important is not just the program, but the people in this room. Each one of you brings experience, perspective, and value. And today is about how we can connect that. So I encourage you, be present, engage, introduce yourself to someone new, and take full advantage of what this room offers. Because this is not just about listening, it's about participating. And with that, it gives me a great pride to introduce someone who represents the next phase of the Hermes Expo. Someone who has taken this platform and expanded its reach, its voice, and its impact. Please join me in welcoming Aphrodite Kotrotsios. Thank you.
Good morning, distinguished guests, respected leaders, and dear friends. Welcome to the 35th anniversary of the Hermes Expo, a milestone that reflects not just longevity, but purpose, impact, and a vision that continues to move forward. For 35 years, Hermes Expo has been more than a business gathering. It has been a bridge between people, between industries, between America and Greece, and between our heritage and our future. There is a unique energy in this room. When Hellenes and Philhellenes come together, we do more than just connect. We strengthen something deeper. We reinforce who we are as a community. We create opportunities, and we continue to elevate the presence of Greek Americans across business, leadership, and public life. We see it every day. Greek Americans making meaningful contributions in government, in enterprise, in innovation. We see our culture not just preserved, but actively represented. And through Hermes Expo, we ensure that our voice remains visible, relevant, and moving forward. From the beginning, this platform has also served as a bridge to Greece, promoting our motherland's products, businesses, innovation, while creating real pathways for collaboration and growth. This vision began in 1992, when my father, Paul Kotrotsios, recognized the need for something more. A space where our community could come together with intention. And what he created has become a national meeting point, one that continues to bring the right people in the right room at the right time. And none of this happens alone. We are incredibly grateful to our conference sponsors, Grecian Delight, Kronos Food, Provident Bank, Pegasus Wealth Management, Thunderbird, and of course, the Honorable Mariana Spiropoulos, Clerk from Circuit Court, Cook County of Chicago. Thank you for their partnership and their presence. Oh, I forgot to mention Green Crown Energy, my apologies. Your commitment reflects the spirit of Hermes Expo and the power of investing in community, connection, and growth. Today's conference brings together a dynamic range of perspectives, from business growth and scalability to energy and infrastructure, to leadership and resilience in today's evolving landscape. You'll hear insights on how to build and expand, how to navigate and change, and how to position yourself and your business with clarity and purpose. Not theory, but insight you can actually use. Before we begin, it is my pleasure to introduce our Master of Ceremonies, Jim Polos. Jim serves as the Executive Director of the Middlesex County Improvement Authority, leading major public-private development initiatives that are shaping the future of the region. His career spans decades of public service, including serving as mayor and county freeholder. Beyond his professional accomplishments, Jim is deeply rooted in faith, family, and community. As an archon of the Ecumenical Patriarchate and as an active leader within the Greek Orthodox community, he represents the values that bring us together today. We are honored to have him guide us through this program. As we begin, I encourage you to fully engage, connect, and exchange ideas. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. It is certainly a pleasure to be with you here today on another successful opportunity to exchange information, exchange ideas, and share new business models that we hopefully all can benefit from. You know, one must take a moment to look at the history of the Hermes Expo, which began in Manhattan, basically focused on an exchange of information about how to promote food, Greek foods, within the international community. And it has grown over the years, not just by design of the architects, the Katrotsios family, but it has grown over the years as a result of collective input from those who have participated over the 30 some odd years of this organization. It was your ideas and your input and your suggestions and recommendations that have helped form and sometimes modify the plan and the agenda of what Hermes Expo is all about. And it is because of your input and requests for a thirst for information and new opportunities and being able to learn, not just attend, that this type of a conference emerged just a few years ago. An exchange of ideas, bringing in some of the most prominent experts, both from the United States as well as with international control and flair, to be able to provide to you ideas, suggestions, and recommendations. So today's an exciting opportunity for you all to not only learn, but exchange ideas and be able to discuss amongst each other how you can help. We have learned one thing, those of us who have been in business, and I have my own as well. We cannot be islands unto ourselves, certainly not in today's world and in today's marketplace. With social media and the growing interconnectivity through electronic media, we can't just stand in an isolated world and assume we know it all and can handle it all. Although that tends to be a little bit of a Greek attribute that we sometimes inherit, and those who are Greek in the room will laugh and smile that sometimes is the way that we think. We have to break out of that and recognize that we cannot do it by ourselves and that we do need partnerships and team effort to be able to participate and to be at the peak of efficiency and to be at the peak of ability to be able to modify and meld to what the market needs are. So we're excited today to have some wonderful speakers, and I'd like to start off to give a moment to an individual who has been a strong backer. When Paul Katrotsios made the decision to move this great event to Middlesex County and to Old Bridge, one of the first people to embrace this fully and be able to really help take the lead in making this work and become a partnership with Old Bridge Township is the Mayor's Office of Economic Development Senior Officer, Steve Mamaka. Steve, would you come up and say a few words, please?
Well, it is an honor to be here. And when Paul came to me 5 years ago, 6 years ago, time flies, I want to thank you all for coming. Welcome to Old Bridge. When Paul, it's amazing, Paul, what you've done here, brought the community together. I say a lot of times, in the word community, there's unity. And it's right in the words. I wear a pin here when I come to this event, and it's the United Nations pin. And this is the United Nations. We unite people here. And I want to welcome to Old Bridge. And on behalf of Senator Henry, I'll do some statements later for him. But again, thank you for coming. Enjoy the day. It's a wonderful day. And this is one of the best events here in Old Bridge. Thank you.
Before I introduce our first speaker, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to thank, on behalf of, I believe, all of you here today and everyone who's participating, with a real great level of sincerity, Paul Katrotsios, Aphrodite, and the entire Katrotsios family and the business operation behind Hermes Expo. Now, some of you may say, well, this is a great business opportunity, not only for yourselves, but also for the Hermes Group. And that is true. But for those of us who know the Katrotsios family and know the basis and the plan for this and the mindset that is in that family as to why this is important, we know that it's much, much more than that. Yes, it is a business opportunity, not only for them and for all of you, but there is a lot of heart, soul, and love in this event. It has grown with a pure heart of intent to create opportunities, not only for the Greek Americans, but for all businesses, and to create these opportunities of exchange of ideas and opportunities to grow our businesses. It is sincere in the Katrotsios family that they feel an obligation, a moral obligation, if you will, to create these kinds of opportunities. And it's not just at the Hermes Expo once a year. It is a way of life for them, year in and year out, week by week and month by month. And I know this personally in my role serving as a vice president of the Metropolis Council for the Archdiocese of New Jersey. I see the Katrotsios family and Paul attending events, not for self-promotion purposes, but to be there in support, to be able to help promote those organizations, to participate, to donate, to provide scholarships and financial support to these organizations that they feel are important to see the growth of the Greek American community and the business community at large. They are not only a part of the Greek community, but the business community. I've seen them participating in the Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce events, Old Bridge Township Chamber of Commerce events, and numerous other ones throughout the state, again, to try to create this wonderful opportunity for advancement for everyone and economic growth. So on behalf of all of us, Paul, to you and the family, we all thank you very much. We begin today's conference with a wonderful speaker, and we're extremely grateful to have him here today. Dionysios Protopappas serves as the Minister Counselor for Economic Affairs and is the head of the Economic and Commercial Section at the Embassy of Greece in Washington, D.C. Over the course of his distinguished career, he has served in various capacities in many countries throughout the world, giving him a very unique global perspective of what is going on in trade relations and investment. He's been in Toronto, Tokyo, Moscow, Istanbul, as well as New York City. In Athens, he served with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, advising senior leadership on international economic policy and contributing to Greece's strategic positioning on the global stage. He has a wonderful background in law and also an MBA in advanced studies in public administration, brings an enormous amount of expertise and experience on policy and strategy and how to execute, which is what we all want to learn today. He's fluent in multiple languages, including Greek, French, and German. And beyond his professional accomplishments, and it's always good to have something to keep you a little bit busy on those off hours, right, sir? He is also a polo athlete, a water polo athlete, and competed in the Vouliameni Nautical Club in Greece. So he brings a lot of energy and excitement to the position. We're looking forward to hearing some of his ideas and how we can better work together. My pleasure to introduce Mr. Dionysios Protopappas. Sir?
Kalimera, good afternoon. Thank you for the comments. I think the one I like most is that I used to play water polo. Anyway, thank you, Paul and Aphrodite, for what you're doing. I started my career in New York, and so I last joined Hermes Expo in 97, 98, and 99 in Atlantic City, and I'm happy to be here again with all of you. So I'm going to talk about where the US-Greek economic relations stand nowadays. We have a problem. The problem is a good one, that our relations were already excellent, and the problem is how to elevate to the next level already excellent relations, and that's what we're trying to do. So my presentation will be a distraction, actually, so if I make a mistake, you won't understand it. But apart from the dancing and a few similar pictures, the presentation covers to a large extent what Greece and the US are engaged into nowadays. So, as you know, since 1.5 years ago, we have a new administration in the US, which changed everything. The new US foreign policy is called commercial diplomacy, which is a lot more than just commercial diplomacy. It covers the whole spectrum of economic activity. So for a country to be relevant to the United States, it has to be able to engage with it in terms of defense, technology, shipping, shipbuilding, energy, logistics. Now, if you manage to fit in those areas, then you're a necessary ally for the US. If you don't, you stay out. I think that Greece is playing well its cards. We actually fit in all those fields, and I'll briefly explain how we do that. Starting with defense, of course, my job is to promote the business side of defense, not the strictly military side. We have a very strong alliance. We provide logistical support, and a lot more than logistical, which don't really publicize. But we really support the US forces in the area. Actually, the US planes, some US planes operate from Souda, Crete. And that extends to a large business cooperation that has to do with defense companies. In terms of energy, which is the main priority of the Trump administration, Greece had started to do its homework already 15 years ago. And by that I mean that we were already diversifying our energy sources. If you take a look 20, 30 years ago, Greece was dependent on Soviet natural gas, and then it was called Russian natural gas. Right now, this is less than 4 or 5% of our total energy imports in Greece, and we plan to totally abolish this portion within the next 1.5 years. So in the last 15 years, Greece has been developing its energy infrastructure, which means mainly 2 inlets, the Rebithousa Island and the Alexandroupolis port, through which now we import US LNG, and with the vertical pipeline that we started building 15 years ago, this natural gas is transported to our neighboring countries, mainly Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, and all the way up to Ukraine. So this is creating a lot of business, and many partnerships are being announced every week about it. We have to take into account that natural gas has to be transported all around the world from the US with ships. And as you probably know, Greek ship owners own 20% of the world fleet. So practically, wherever you stand in the world, 1 in every ship is Greek-owned. And this is a huge asset that, on which we build our relations with the US. So we expect this type of cooperation to continue. It creates a dependence of Greece on US LNG, but on the other hand, if you're a good buyer, also the seller is dependent on what you do with the product. So this will be a lasting cooperation for the following at least 10, 15 years. I also mentioned logistics. By that I mean port development, and as you know, the Piraeus port is being managed by a Chinese company, COSCO. So now what we're doing right now is we're creating counterbalance with other Greek ports in order to avoid any economic vulnerabilities that may be created out of the fact that China controls Piraeus. So we work together with the US side for investment in other Greek ports, and actually the DFC, which is the main financial arm of the American government, is very active in that regard in Greece. We're bringing back our shipbuilding industry, mainly the 2 main shipyards, Elefsina and Skaramagas. Elefsina is being financed by DFC, the US government, and we anticipate that in the following years, a part of the several projects will be given to allied countries, and one of them will be Greece, because simply the US lacks the capacity to build and maintain its whole fleet. So it will definitely need to amend the Jones Act, which is what doesn't allow those projects to go to other countries right now, but for sure this will happen in the next 2-3 years. I talked a bit about investment. There are many more US investments in Greece than one can think of. In the last couple of months, we've made, with the ambassador, numerous meetings with US companies. In each, there were at least 25, 30 companies, and to my surprise, each one of them, actually all of them, are doing business in Greece, even companies that I've never heard about. And I can see now that the official numbers do not fully capture the width of the US investments in the economic cooperation with Greece. Of course, you're all concerned, I guess, with tariffs and what's happening with that. We'd rather live without the tariffs, but tariffs are a reality, and despite the decision by the US Supreme Court, our tariffs are here to stay simply because they cover a significant portion of the US budget. So as a revenue, it's totally necessary for the US government to continue imposing tariffs to gather in order to receive the money. However, tariffs have not hurt the trade between Greece and the US. In the past year, with the tariffs, we saw that the trade level stayed the same. We actually had a slight increase in the sectors that were mostly hit by tariffs, which is the industrial sector, like aluminum, steel, copper products, and we had a slight decrease in the food sector. Now, if I ask you, what do you think that Greece exports mostly in the US, what would you say? I've made the same question 15 years ago to a German audience, and they didn't get it. So let's try. What do you think that Greece exports to the US? Food. What kind of food? Okay, that's everything. Olive oil. That's 1%. So anyway, I'll keep it short. So our exports are 1/3 refinery products like gasoline, fuel jets, valvolines. The other third is industrial products, which is steel, aluminum, copper, and machinery. And the other third is food products. So we have a very balanced trade volume. We actually run a small trade surplus with the US. And if we take out all the hydrocarbons, then our surplus is around $600 million with the US. So we don't feel really threatened by the tariffs because companies have adjusted. Actually, companies are investing more in order to be able to maintain the current sales, which makes us optimistic for the future. So I think I kept it in. My timing was perfect. That's the last slide. I didn't expect it, but so thank you very much. I wish you the best of success.
We'll leave it up as a beautiful backdrop. Thank you.
So very much.
Thank you, Minister, very much. We really appreciate those very enlightening remarks. And it was interesting as you were speaking about energy and the importance of that to the Greek economy. I don't know if everyone read or not this morning, the change in the global structure of what's going on with fuel and oil. United Arab Emirates, I think, reported this morning that it's their intention to break out of the OPEC purchasing group, which has been in existence for, I have to believe, 40 years or more. So it's showing that perhaps things are changing in the industry field, and it's a perfect segue into our next speaker, who is truly an expert in energy and its importance and relevance. He is Sal Retorto is the owner of Green Crown Energy, which has really been known for transforming on a national level what energy is all about, helping organizations navigate rising costs. We've certainly seen that. Gas is up a little over $1 now a gallon, with no necessarily reduction in sight, at least not in the near future. There's been a lot of infrastructure shifts and long-term strategy. His focus is on where data meets decision-making and where strategy directs impact. And in today's environment, again, speaking about energy, we certainly need a perspective that's not just relevant, but essential. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Sal Retorto from Green Crown Energy. Sal? Welcome.
Seeking a clicker if one is present. Okay. Good afternoon. My name's Sal Retorto. I appreciate you all being here. And I'm one of the partners and president of Green Crown Energy. We are an Inc. 5000 fastest growing company in America. And what we do is help multi-facility portfolios nationwide reduce their energy spend, decrease consumption, and drive sustainability initiatives. Now, before we get started, I do want to share something, which is this is my 11th Hermes Expo. I was expecting maybe some clapping, just a little bit. So I guess I've been to more of these than Pavlos Katrotsios himself, almost. Catching up, I'm about a third of the way there. But today I have two goals for you folks, okay? Goal number one, I want to make sure you're each the smartest person at the dinner table when the subject of rising energy costs comes up, okay? So that's number one, you're gonna leave here quasi-experts. Number two, despite Green Crown not being a residential energy company, we're going to leave you with a gift, which is the gift of guaranteed savings at home. More to come on that in a moment. But before we get started, a quick show of hands. Who in this room has opened up an electricity bill in the past month, 6 months, or year, and audibly gasped at what you've seen? Okay, there's a lot of very wealthy people in this room because not many people have their hands up. So this is a good audience. So if you have noticed this, it's not just you. It's not an issue with your meter. It's not an issue with utility. It's not because your favorite gubernatorial candidate did not get elected into office who promised they were going to lower your bills. It's because something has structurally changed in electricity markets. And today we're going to talk about it. No intense energy jargon, nothing overly technical, but we're going to discuss what happened, why it happened, and what you can actually do about it to improve the outcome. So whether you guys own a national portfolio of 10,000 sites or rent a 200 square foot apartment in lower Manhattan, you'll walk away with something actionable today. And I think the issue is that folks are still thinking about energy the same way they did 10 years ago, and that's actually where the problem begins. So with that, here's how we're gonna spend the next few minutes. I've asked Aphrodite for 3 hours and she told me I have about 11. So we're gonna move relatively quickly here. But we're gonna discuss what actually changed in energy markets and why it's likely not going to reverse, the 4 forces that are actually driving energy demand today as we know it. We'll also talk about a critical concept that most people miss, which is most invoices for electricity have 2 issues, not just one. Then 2 levers that you can pull immediately. This is mostly applicable to business customers. How Green Crown can do this at scale for a national client, and then again, to close, a gift for everybody in the room that is a homeowner, renter, anybody paying a residential invoice. So with that, we're gonna move on to the headline, which is electricity prices are now rising 2 to 3 times faster than inflation nationally. Now in this market, which is the 13-state footprint that we call PJM, everything from Illinois down to the Carolinas up to New Jersey and Pennsylvania, it's been even more. And again, it's not just a spike, bad luck, rising fuel costs, it's a structural change in how electricity markets work. And for decades, as we all know, energy was kind of boring. No one talked about it. It was flat, right? It maybe rose with the rate of inflation, but that era is now over. We're in a marketplace now where it's behaving much more like a financial market than it is a utility. And once something like this becomes structural, it's unlikely to change. So if you're waiting for prices to go back down, again, whether you're in business or just thinking about your home, do not shoot the messenger, but it's not going to happen. Now, why is this happening? We have four very important forces coalescing, coming together all at once that's really making most of this impact. And number one probably comes as no surprise to anybody in this room, which is AI and data centers. Every chat GPT query, every model training run, every server farm runs 24/7. You sending that picture of your tick bite to Claude costs a lot of money and requires servers to run very aggressively on a recurring basis. So this demand simply did not exist 5 years ago. It came out of nowhere. Number two is manufacturing's coming home. You've got chip plants, EV factories, massive, constant base load that our grid was simply not designed for. And number three is electrification. Cars, stoves. Take a look at New York City, the recent banning of gas stoves, right? And even some policy has driven a lot of change in most markets. Like in New York City a year and a half ago, the city and the state was more or less providing free EV chargers for major landowners. And Greencrown supported a lot of our clients with this. They'd be able to install up to 50 EV charging stations per garage. The conduit was included, switch gears, installation, hardware, software, training for staff. A lot of policy has driven a lot of grids to electrify, which has its benefits, but at the same rate, that same policy has required us to retire very effective baseload generation that would have helped us meet demand for that additional load. And then finally, you've got the grid itself. It's aging. New transmission takes over a decade, sometimes to plan and to build. And we're retiring the generation faster than we're building it. So naturally, demand is exploding. Supply cannot keep up. And the easiest way to picture this is a highway built for 1980s traffic. And all of a sudden, you're tripling the population, you're dumping Amazon drivers, UPS drivers, Waymo, self-driving taxis, whatever. And if you've ever been to Houston, LA, Atlanta, New York, you know that when this happens, the traffic doesn't just stop, the whole system breaks, right? And that's what we're working with today. Now, this is a picture of the US grid's demand over the years, and we're going to start to put some real numbers behind this now. For 20 years, as you guys can see in the blue, load growth was flat, right? We were spoiled by this very natural gas-rich environment. We had a ton of shale gas and very little demand. So naturally, things stayed relatively consistent. But now the IEA projects that data centers will more than double demand by 2030. Goldman Sachs has even more aggressive estimates. And in the US, data centers will drive over half of all load growth in the next decade. Now, it differs market by market, and you guys have probably seen Dominion mentioned in Virginia, right, the data center hub. But even if we look at a market like Texas, which is one of the largest power grids in the US, Texas is planning for up to 50 gigawatts of new electricity bolted onto what's currently there right now. And just to give you perspective, and this is, I guess, quiz time, does anybody know how big the grid of the country of Greece is? It's a very random question, so I don't fault anybody for not knowing that. Spot on. It's built for a little bit more, but it's 10 gigawatts, right? So we are literally taking 5 entire country of Greece grids and bolting them onto Texas in the next few years. That's one state in the US. And the driver? Data centers, of course, right? So this is beyond traditional growth. It is a literal step change in what's coming to market. And here's the problem. Supply doesn't just blossom overnight. It doesn't just pop up. It takes decades to permit, to build. And you guys have probably seen news about modular reactors and battery energy storage, and Bloom Energy's up 20% today, right? There's great technology out there, but the fact is, you need reliable, constantly humming base load generation to meet demand, and none of those technologies offer it quite yet. So I'll give you another example. 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania, some of you may know for a very popular disaster several years ago. That project was recently purchased by Microsoft, and it's even taking them years to recommission it, not months. So when demand accelerates a lot faster than supply, prices don't just rise, again, they break. And now we're going to talk about why. So here's where you're actually going to earn your dinner table facts, right? Most people don't realize this, but your electricity bill has 2 primary components. It's actually got 30, but we're going to keep this simple and say it's 2, right? You've got your energy, which everybody knows. You consume 10,000 kilowatt hours, you're billed at 10 cents, you get your supply price. But then you've also got something called capacity. And that's the one that's really changing. This is what's moving pricing for everybody. And when you think about capacity, think about it as the grid's insurance policy. It's what we pay to maintain adequate generation at all times. Now, capacity is not based on how much electricity you use, it's based on when you use it. So in theory, you can actually use less electricity, use it at the wrong time, and you'll notice that your bill has absolutely skyrocketed. And that's what we're contending with. Now, to illustrate just how much capacity has increased over the past few years, this slide is very small, so I don't fault you for not seeing it, but that final blue bar there has capacity priced on our grid at $28 a megawatt day. All right, so let's do away with the actual measurement, just say 28 bucks is the price we paid in 2025 for capacity. In 2027, it's cleared at $333. That's an 11 times increase. Not 11%, an 11 times increase in one of the biggest components of your electricity bill and every company's electricity bill in this 13-state footprint, and nationally, similar results as well. So the point is capacity is the real driver behind rising electricity prices, not the cost of the commodity itself. But fortunately, there is something that we could do about it. But first, I'm going to show you what an actual bill looks like now and in the future due to this increase. So on the left, you have a typical supply bill from 2024. Energy was the big bucket. Capacity, you probably can't see this, but it was a rounding error, it was about 4% of the total price. Fast forward to the latest known period for capacity prices, which is 2027, and it's now 30% of the price. That's an 11 times increase, again, in just 2 years, which has pushed pricing up 46% in this region. So those who didn't raise their hands, you gotta pay a little more attention, just a little bit. And the reason why for this is because our region's really feeling the AI and the data center demand harder than anywhere else in the country. But again, if only there was something that we could do about this. So energy is one of the only major expenses that most people, most organizations don't manage on a daily basis. And there's 2 primary levers to control it, okay? The first one is energy procurement. Like I said, energy is a commodity, but you don't have to accept whatever shows up on your bill, right? And this is more so for larger organizations, but timing matters, strategy matters. The difference between being opportunistic and being reactive with how you buy energy can be 20 to 30%. And whether you're a homeowner or running a global business, that's real impact. And on the other side of the equation, we have demand management, which controls that cost that we discussed called capacity. And this is about time of use. And here's to me, as an energy nerd, the astonishing thing. You could impact capacity by reducing how much you use on just 5 hours every year. And now I'm going to show you exactly how that math works. So we have the same customer on the left-hand side paying $92 with this new capacity price. And on the right-hand side, we have a 22% reduction in bundled unit cost for power. This customer reduced how much they consume 5 hours out of the year. And that's it. It created 22% in savings. And this is the average. These are average numbers in this market, in this region. And here's a beautiful piece. Does anybody know how many hours there are in a year? I'm looking at the engineers in the room. Don't quite know where to find them. Maybe there's none. It's 8,760 hours in 1 year. So by curtailing your usage, by dimming the lights, turning down the HVAC, if you're an industrial manufacturer, maybe stopping a shift, moving some load around, 0.05% of the year, you can drive 22% savings on your electric bill. Somebody show me 5 hours invested in another area of your business that leads to over 20% savings. I'm sure somebody has a good answer. But now, a quick plug on us, who we are and what we do for what comes next. We're Green Crown Energy. We manage energy portfolios for operators that have dozens, hundreds, and thousands of locations nationwide. And the reason we've been nominated to the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies is because our customers understand something that most haven't quite realized yet, which is in this new energy market, you have to actively manage your energy daily. The set it and forget it era that most folks in the room that are purchasing energy for their companies, whether it's a small commercial business or a large enterprise, that era is over, right? It's a new ball game, and our focus is simple. We help these customers reduce spend, decrease consumption, and understand energy data because so much has changed in this new paradigm. Now, I'm gonna show you guys what this works like at scale. So here's a quick study. This is a customer that we work with. And actually, Mr. Patrocios was part of the reason that we acquired this customer. So it's a great success story and testament to the partnership. But we work with this customer, Butterfly Energy. They're one of the largest retail energy users in the country. And their business model entails them going into fast casual restaurants, and they have a few dozen different brands that they work with. But ultimately, they manage the electricity for companies like McDonald's, Wendy's, Jersey Mike's, all the healthy stuff, basically. And they spend about $100 million a year on electricity, just on power. So through smart energy procurement, through demand side management, which is something that Green Crown supports for them, they're able to achieve $15 million a year in savings. And again, this is through negotiation of agreements, through smart timing, with demand side management, reducing their capacity costs. And it's proof that these small little percentage changes can actually drive very meaningful impact in the bottom line with no capital expenditure, just changing behaviors, right? So a customer like Butterfly can outperform the market with relative ease. And this is about as technical as I will get today, but this is a chart of energy prices in the Illinois market behind a utility called ComEd, which is where Chicago is. And for their Illinois load, for their consumption in that state, through price monitoring, we captured 8 dips in the marketplace and executed triggers during each of those 8 dips for the customer, which is proof that you cannot any longer treat energy like a set it and forget it or do something on a random Tuesday for the next 5 years approach. It has to be actively managed. Daily monitoring, defined by triggers, automated alerts when the market hits a certain point, and most importantly, a system to act, not just watch and observe pricing. And most buyers and advisors don't do this. They renew when a contract is up. So the takeaway is not the size of Butterfly or the approach here. It's that this works whether you're spending $100 million a year on energy, or again, paying your utility bill at your 200 square foot apartment in Lower Manhattan. All the same concept. Now, we did promise you a gift. Number 2, hopefully we checked the box on number 1. You guys are feeling a little more smart when it comes to energy and energy procurement. But number 2 is this program called Community Solar. So Green Crown and the Hermes Expo partnered with a company called Enterbridge. And what that company does is secures placement in community solar programs for residential customers. So I'm assuming everybody in here lives in a home. Probably a pretty safe assumption. Doesn't matter whether you own or rent, you're eligible for this program. And the short version of how it works is the states have very aggressive sustainability goals. And in states like New Jersey, Illinois, and New York, this program is very easy to access. You subscribe to a solar farm. The credits from that solar farm show up directly on your invoice. And that's it. It's as easy as that. And just to get a little more granular, because the states have such aggressive sustainability targets, they pay developers to build these large-scale projects. And the way the legislation is typically written, the developers of those projects have to pass on savings to low and moderate income customers, to regular residences, and to businesses. And the purpose of the partnership is to gain access to these programs, because they're very difficult to access, and when these projects come online, they typically disappear in 48 hours max. So the nature of the partnership is to bring that savings to Hermes Expo attendees. If you guys are interested in the program, you could scan the QR code or just come to our booth, find us. It is one of those too good to be true scenarios, so if you have questions, we're more than happy to answer them. But the goal here was to make sure that you guys can walk away with not only a little bit of information, but something tangible in terms of savings. And on that note, I'm going to leave you guys with one message. It's that energy is no longer just a balance sheet issues for organizations. It is now a balance sheet issue for organizations, okay? And it's going to show up in your margins, in your EBITDA, and in your enterprise value if nothing is done to actively manage it. So happy to nerd out on anything energy if anybody has any questions, and I want to thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Oh, no, I want to leave right here. Thank you. Another round of applause for Sal. Thank you very much for that very enlightening presentation. But Sal, I'd be less than sincere if I didn't ask you a question. You were speaking before about how we could save 5 hours a year. I saw everybody take their pen and pad out because everybody wanted to know which 5 hours is it, right? Am I right? I saw the hands going up. Or is it any 5 hours, or do we have to hire you to figure out which 5 hours it is? Just kidding.
So again, we try to keep it very simple, right? The program is a little bit complex. The 5 hours are determined after the fact. But there's algorithms that will tell you with certainty maybe 8 or so of those periods throughout the year.
Okay.
Right? So you're typically asked to curtail during 8 hours, sometimes 6, sometimes 9, depending on the year, how hot it is, and what's going on in the grid. And if you respond at each of those moments, you will reduce your peak demand.
Okay.
So we're happy to connect you guys with a firm that does that. If anybody
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, next speaker, Irina Kapetanakis, is a very wonderful woman who brings some powerful combination of vision, execution, and scale. She has built a career working with major corporations before launching her own. She not only entered the fitness industry, but as many of us who know her know, she transformed within it. She has a sense of purpose and sustainability that she uses to expand her business into great major markets in the area. Today, she's going to share with us how to build and grow a business. So please join me in welcoming Irina to the stage.
Hello, everyone. I want to first start off by saying thank you to the Gotrotios family. This is an amazing event, and thank you to all of you for being here, not only to listen to all of these speakers, but also to share in business strategies post the event. So I didn't plan to scale. I didn't build a 5-year plan, sit down with a whiteboard and map out a multi-unit franchise portfolio. I opened one studio in Hoboken, New Jersey. And at that point, I was not thinking about scale. I was thinking about the questions that every first-time operator thinks about. Will this work? Will people show up? Did I make the right decision? Before that, I knew Rumble as a New York City brand. It had this energy, this edge, this feeling that made it feel like more than just a workout. When Rumble sold and became a franchise, I saw an opportunity. But it was not because I had some grand plan. I understood the market. Post-COVID, many people moved from New York City to the suburbs and especially to Hoboken. They still wanted that city energy. They still wanted the same experience. And they wanted boutique fitness that felt social, exciting, and elevated. They just wanted it closer to home. I remember thinking, if I can bring that experience here, it will work. That was the bet. The perfect location, the right timing, and the right modality for what was happening in Hoboken at that moment. And it worked. Hoboken became the #1 Rumble studio globally. That sounds like the moment where everything just gets easier. But in business, success does not always make things easier. Sometimes success just gives you a bigger question to answer. Now what? At the time, I was trying to figure out what my next move would be. I had proven one location could work. I had momentum, I had confidence, and then opportunity showed up in a way that I didn't expect. The original owners of the New York City studios were looking to sell. So basically overnight, I went from 1 studio to 6 studios. There was no slow ramp, there was no careful transition, no clean little checklist that said, here's how you become a multi-unit operator. It was trial by fire. And I had to adapt quickly because I had no choice. I could not sit around to wait and feel ready. The business needed decisions. The teams needed leadership, and the locations needed attention. The problems did not wait for me to catch up. That's when I realized one of the biggest lessons of my career. Growth does not fix problems. Growth exposes them. When you have one location, you can hide a lot. You can jump in, you can cover gaps, you can smooth things over, you can answer every text, solve every problem, and be the person who keeps the whole thing moving. At one location, you can be the system. But when you scale, that stops working really fast. Suddenly, every weakness becomes visible, every unclear role, every inconsistent process, every cultural issue, every sales gap, every team member who just needs too much direction. At one location, a problem is manageable. At 6 locations, that same problem becomes a pattern. And patterns are what determine whether or not a business can multiply. I remember walking into different studios and realizing that the same brand did not mean the same experience. The logos were the same, the workout was the same, and the name on the door was the same, but the feeling was not the same. That was a wake-up call. We did not need more locations. We needed a business model that could repeat. That's the difference between growth and scale. Growth is adding more. Scale is making sure more can work without everything falling apart. The biggest thing that broke when I started scaling was the team. And this was hard because in Hoboken, I had people I relied on, people I trusted, people who had helped me build something successful. But the scope of one studio and the scope of 6 studios are completely different. I learned very quickly that not every person's role is meant to scale, and not every person is built for the next stage of business. Someone can be excellent in one role and completely overwhelmed when put into a bigger role. This does not make them bad, and it doesn't erase what they've already contributed. It just means that the business outgrew the role, or the role outgrew them. At one location, you need people who are scrappy, people who can wear multiple hats, people who can jump in and figure it out. At scale, you need something totally different. You need leaders who can manage complexity. You need people who can communicate clearly. You need people who can adapt with change instead of resisting it. And you need people who can lead other people, not just complete tasks. That was one of the biggest surprises for me. Some people were great when things were smaller, but the second you place them into situations where they were required to do something bigger, they just fell apart. And I had to ask hard questions. Can this person lead without constant direction? Can they make decisions without feeling like they're under pressure? Can the person handle ambiguity? And can they bring stability and not chaos? Loyalty builds the beginning of a business, but scalability builds the next chapter. That's not an easy truth to accept, but if you're serious about building something that you can multiply, you can't confuse loyalty with capacity. At one studio, people can survive on memory. They know where things are. They know what to do, and they know how you like things because they're around you all the time. But when you have multiple locations, memory is not a system. Personality is not a system. And heroics are not a system. If your business depends on one person remembering everything, your business is not scalable. This is where a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck. They think they have a people problem. Sometimes they do, but a lot of times it's a systems problem. The person is confused because the process is unclear. The team is inconsistent because the standard is not documented. The manager is not executing because no one defined what execution actually looks like. Scaling forced me to look at things through a different lens. What's the process? Who owns it? How do we measure it? And what happens when it's not done? Those are not glamorous questions. They are not exciting. But they are the questions that determine whether or not a business can grow beyond the founder. A business that can multiply cannot live in your head. Community was a huge part of what made Hoboken work, and I wanted to bring that same feeling to the other studios. But culture doesn't just transfer because you own the locations. Culture does not scale because you say the word community in a meeting. Culture is behavior repeated consistently. It's how someone is greeted when they walk in. It's whether a new client feels noticed. It's whether the team knows their name. It's whether the studio feels welcoming or transactional. And it's whether people feel like they're part of something or they're just buying a class. Fitness has changed. Gyms are not just gyms anymore. People are looking for places where they can meet others, build routine, feel connected, and feel like they belong. If you look at your business, any business, as just a product, you're missing the entire point. People might come in for your product, but they stay for the experience. An experience has to be engineered. It cannot be accidental. So I had to start asking very specific questions. What should a first-time client feel like when they walk in? Who is responsible for making that happen? How do we follow up? How do we make people feel included? How do we create excitement upon coming back? This is where businesses win, not just in the product, but in the emotional imprint that they leave on the customer. One of my most strongly held opinions in business is that the product itself is not your differentiator. A product is table stakes. In my case, if someone shows up consistently to almost any workout, they're gonna see results over time. So when people say our modality, our product is what makes us different, I think that they're missing the larger point. The product gets people in the door. The experience determines whether they stay. Did they feel seen? Did they feel included? Did someone notice that it was their first time? Did someone make them feel like this could be their new home? This matters more than operators want to admit, because people do not just make buying decisions with logic. They make them with emotion. They remember how they felt. And in boutique fitness especially, the emotional experience is the business. Your brand is not what you say it is. Your brand is how people feel when they leave. There was a point where I really thought this might not work. For me, that was when I went from the 1 to 6 studios and took on locations that needed a lot of work. I had distressed studios. I had teams that needed to be retrained and in many cases rehired. I had cultures that needed to be rebuilt. I had mindsets that needed to shift, and all of it was happening at the same time. It was overwhelming. There were financial concerns. There were leadership challenges. There were moments where I was constantly trying to find people who could step into roles that I absolutely needed filled. I was powering through, but man, was it scary at times. I think people sometimes talk about scaling like it's just exciting. And it is exciting, but it can be very heavy. And because when you're leading a business, people look to you for certainty when you don't feel certain. They expect direction even when you're trying to figure it out in real time. And you have to keep making decisions even when you're tired. Scaling will test your business, but it's going to test you first. That period taught me that leadership is not just about having the answer. Sometimes leadership is about staying steady long enough to find the answer. But at the end of the day, I believe in hope. I think hope is important. Hope keeps people moving. But hope without process is just a dream. You can hope sales improve, that your team figures it out. You can hope that the culture gets better and that the business turns around. But hope does not make the calls. Hope does not train the team. Hope does not create accountability, and it doesn't create the operating system. Hope starts the momentum, but systems are what sustain it. A scalable business needs real processes. It needs operations. It needs people who execute. It needs clear standards. It needs follow-up, and it needs accountability. And accountability is not about being harsh. It's about being clear. Most people do not fail because they do not care. They fail because the expectations were vague. Feedback was inconsistent, and the process was unclear. Clarity is kindness in a scaling business. If people do not know what winning looks like, you can't be surprised when they don't win. A lot of founders and operators struggle because they want to scale, but they do not want to release control. They want growth, but they still want to approve everything. They want leaders, but they don't want those leaders to have the room to lead. I understand that because I lived it. When your name, your money, your reputation, and your future are tied to the business, letting go is not simple. It feels risky, it feels uncomfortable, and sometimes it feels impossible. But if you stay in everything, everything remains dependent on you. If you're involved in every decision, you've not built a business, you've built a bottleneck. At scale, your job needs to change. You go from doing to deciding, from fixing to leading, from controlling to building people who can control the outcomes. That doesn't mean you disappear, it just means you elevate. The goal is not to be needed everywhere. The goal is to build something strong enough that you are not needed everywhere. Being franchise ready is not about having multiple locations. You can have multiple locations and still not have a scalable business. You can be growing and still be completely dependent on the founder. Franchise ready means that the business can operate without you, beyond you, and consistently across all your locations. To me, there are 5 things every business needs before it can truly multiply. One is a repeatable model. The business cannot depend on one perfect location, one perfect manager, or one perfect market. You need to know what makes it work and how and if it can be replicated. 2 is documented systems. If the process only exists in your head, it doesn't exist. You need sales systems, onboarding systems, communication and hiring systems, training systems, but especially accountability systems. 3, scalable people. You need people who can grow with the business, not just people who do tasks, but people who can own the outcomes. 4 is an engineered experience. The customer experience cannot be left to chance. Every touch point matters, from the first class to the follow-up to the way someone feels when they walk out your door. And 5, evolving leadership. The leader has to grow as the business grows. The version of you that opens one location is not the version that you can lead 6, 8, or 10, or many more locations. At one point, I had 8 studios. 6 of those were in the top 10, and we dominated the top 5 across the global Rumble universe. I'm proud of that, but I'm also very aware that the numbers only tell a small part of my story. Behind the rankings were hard conversations, rebuilt teams, new systems, cultural resets, long nights, mistakes, stress, decisions I had to make before I felt ready to make them. That's the part of scaling that people don't always see. Success is visible, but the operating discipline behind success usually is not. But that discipline is the business. Today, in addition to leading the work in my studios, I've opened an advisory arm through IK Advisory. I work with franchisees and business owners who are either stuck or trying to scale. Some of them have businesses that are working, but they are still too dependent on the owner. Some are in the weeds and do not know what to let go of. Some have teams that are busy, but not productive. Some have no real operating rhythm. Some have grown, but the growth created more chaos than freedom. And usually, they don't need more ideas. They need clarity, they need structure, and they need a system that turns effort into execution. Because scale is not about doing more for the sake of doing more. It's about building a business that can repeat what works, fix what does not, and keep moving without depending on one person to hold it all together. If there's one thing I want every founder, business owner, or operator to take away, it's this. You do not rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your systems. Ambition is important, vision is important, belief is important. But if the systems are weak, the business will show you. If the roles are unclear, the business will show you. If the team is not scalable, if the experience is inconsistent, the customer will show you. So ask yourself, can this business run without me? Can this experience be repeated? Can someone step in and execute the standard? Do I have the right people in the right roles? Do I have systems strong enough to support the growth that I want? Because if the answer is no, you're not scaling yet. You're just growing. And growth without structure becomes chaos. A franchise-ready business is not built by accident. It's not built on hope alone. It's not built by one person doing everything. It's built with intention, with systems, with people who can grow, and with a customer experience that's repeatable and real. A business that can multiply is not built on momentum, it's built on intention. Thank you.
Please, another round of applause for Irina. That was extremely informative and helpful to those who may be looking to expand their businesses or perhaps franchising. And Irina, I couldn't help but think about the introduction this morning that Paul Katrotios gave as he introduced Aphrodite as kind of the next generation of taking over the operations of Hermes. And I thought about your issue of scaling and the ability to be able to give up responsibility. And I think this morning was a good example of Paul saying, Aphrodite is here to run operations and take over some of the responsibilities, and then I think that that's a very positive thing and very good example of what occurred. Before I introduce our next speaker, just want to mention one thing. In our Greek community, as I'm sure in many other communities, we believe that one aspirational goal, if not many, certainly success, are well healed and bonded with our faith. So I would just like to take a moment, because I think it's exceptional that we happen to have with us today two individuals who have been here for the entire conference, have heard all the speeches, and we really appreciate them being here. Father Nectarios and Father Efthymios from St. George Greek Orthodox Church are in the background. A round of applause to thank them for being here, for their support and their love for what is trying to be accomplished here at the wonderful Hermes Expo. Our next speaker represents the intersection of law, strategy, and entrepreneurship. He is the CEO of Thunderbird. Mike Bolos leads complex operations, drives acquisitions, and builds long-term growth across multiple sectors. He has a background both as an attorney and as a founder, and he brings a rare perspective on what it takes to build not just successful companies, but enduring ones. Today, he will share insights on building a business that lasts across generations. Please join me in welcoming Mike Bolos. Mike? Welcome.
All right. It's a pleasure to be here. These speeches have been amazing. I mean, For a conference that doesn't have 5,000 people in it, you're getting really the best advice I've ever heard at a conference. What Irina had said about growth, I've felt it. Everything she said was spot on. In my time at Thunderbird, we started with 4 companies and we're up to 10, buying our 11th. And those systems, what we call SOPs, your standard operating procedures, they're everything. What I'm going to be talking about is family businesses. Greeks especially have a penchant for starting family businesses. We came to America, we started our businesses, and continue on that path. I also love to say Greeks know how to make a buck however they want to. So, my background. When I was at Wharton, I studied family business. Again, my family had a business, we were in banking. Our family did not transition to the second generation of that business. The business sold recently. My father retired at the ripe young age of 83, just this year. And I'm now part of another family business with my in-laws that my father-in-law had started, and we're running that now. And that business is in manufacturing. So we have 10, soon to be 11 manufacturing plants, as I said, throughout the country. And we buy mostly family businesses. In the past few years, we bought 6, and again, I'm working on closing my 7th last night in my hotel room. So I know a lot about what makes family businesses successful and what makes them unsuccessful. The facts on family business. I redid some of the stats because I had seen in all the research, 97% of family businesses fail in the 3rd generation. Not entirely true, because it's about how far each generation gets through that chain. And so 60% fail to pass to the 2nd generation. For those that are in the 2nd generation, 57% fail to get to the 3rd, and 3rd generation does have the highest failure rate when they're in ownership at 77%, not making it through that 3rd generation. As I said, family businesses in America, we've all heard it, they're 90% of American businesses. They're everything. And something that doesn't get enough credit is that we outsurvive public companies. The average public company will last 15 years. The average family business lasts 24 years. So it's an enduring business. It's one that can really persist. And the final point, when you hear fail, that family businesses fail, that doesn't mean they go bankrupt. That can be a sale, like occurred in my family business. So it doesn't mean that that generation is not succeeding by certain definitions and doesn't have other reasons to pull out the capital. Why 3rd generation might fail. There's an old saying, rich father, noble son, poor grandson. It is common to say, right? It's common to say that 3rd generation does fail, and you have that distance from the founder. That's one of the keys, and I'll talk about it later. Those distance from the founding principles that started the company. The loss of hunger, life has gotten easy. That scrappiness is gone, that need is gone. And then growing families and power struggles. That's what took down, the house of Gucci. There was just so much infighting, because as you go from one generation, one founder, now you have 3 kids. Those 3 kids have 3 kids. Now you have 9 people vying for opportunities and for leadership and for power. And if the company isn't growing to feed those mouths, you're fighting for the same pie, and that becomes desperation. Building a foundation. This is something I've never heard in any book, but I've seen it over and over and over again. This is the core of how you make a business pass down generations, and if you really want to. Are you Alexander the Great? Are you Philip II of Macedon? This is a big debate you need to have with yourself. As I said, what is your real life goal? A lot of people start businesses, but do they really want to create a family business? Do they really want to create a generational business? Because that's a very different perspective. There's a saying in Asia, there's a flower and a gardener. You cannot be both. Are you the flower? Are you the one that just thinks that you will create the generational wealth that everyone else will benefit from? Or are you one that's creating a generational business? So Philip of Macedon, I think, was a much greater leader than Alexander the Great. Everyone respects Alexander the Great. He was the best. The empire grew like none other. But what happened after Alexander the Great died? Within months, the power vacuum took over. The entire empire crashed. Macedon, that was completely demolished in power vacuums. It was Philip II who grew, stabilized, raised a son, had him taught by Aristotle. He built the foundation and the child to be able to carry it on. So it's fine if you are the flower. It's absolutely fine if you can build 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion business and sell it and create generational wealth that everyone can live in prosperity on. But it is a different perspective than raising a child and designing an entire organization around that child or children taking over. The next, again, is have you built a business that's actually generational? When we're buying a company at Thunderbird, one of the common questions we always ask with every company, is it a buggy whip company? You say, is it a buggy whip company? Do they manufacture essentially buggy whips, things that will be obsolete? They're selling because they know their industry is dying. And so this man over here in this factory making wagon wheels, is that really something that is going to survive? If it's 1905, are you going to buy that business? What if they're not making Model T wheels? What if they're not making the future of wheels? It will go out of business. So I don't know if you've ever found a stubborn Greek, but you have to adapt to change. I know that business was good for however long, but it might not be good for this extremely volatile, extremely changing future. Ask yourself, is it a business that my children can raise their grandchildren on? You know, is it something that will succeed in the future? And that's a hard question. But it doesn't mean your business has to be perfect in its current iteration. You can change. So I have up there Nintendo. Not many people know Nintendo. They made cards for 100 years. Well, 90 years exactly. So they were a card manufacturer. It was wonderful business. Imagine how many people lived and died on successful card making. But when it hit to the 60s and 70s, they saw the market change. And they took a massive pivot and went into video games, of all things. You can make those changes. You can make those strategic changes. You can see how the world is moving and pivot to it. But you have to make sure you're building a business that your children can succeed on. So think about that as well. I didn't have a tab that said first step, raise a child or have a child, but assuming you have that next generation to give to. I'm not going to put a slide about that either, you guys. But have you raised a child that can run a company? Do you have, the child on the top or the kid at the bottom sitting in his parents' basement? I'm pretty passionate. I have a 3-year-old, 5-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And I do my best every day to think, how can I raise them to be business owners? How can I raise them to be leaders? And Lord knows, I say raising children is a 30-year test, and you don't know if you've passed until it's too late to do anything. So I'm hoping I'm doing a good job, but you never know. I think when you have a young child, teach them how to, make, spend, and save money. And it's not just saving. Everyone's like, oh, put it in the bank, put it in the bank. It's not saving. They got to learn how to spend it too. You have to say, all right, this is my budget. This is what I'm going to work for. This is what I'm going to put away. And when I've bought something with my money, I can be proud of it. Sell something. I always tell my kids, you have to go out and sell something. Make something and sell it to someone, even if it's a family member. When I was a little kid in preschool, I was selling things. When I was in kindergarten, I was selling things out of my backpack. It just needs to be in your nature to sell. Every business owner is a salesman. We know that. Negotiate for more. My wife last month asked my 8-year-old, said, I'll give you $2 if you clean the basement. He said, would you do it for $5? I gave him $1 right there. I said, that's the right question. My wife didn't appreciate it, but I thought it was a great question. But teach them how to negotiate. Again, a key skill in business. Adolescence, as I said, education, and then parenthetical education. There is being good at school, there is getting the core foundational knowledge, and after that, there is the practical school. How many founders do we know, especially Greek founders who never went to college? It's not about that type of education all the time. It's about the real street education. Real responsibility and start a business early. you never learn anything as much as you do when you start a business. I have all the degrees in the world from Wharton, Oxford, Harvard, Cornell, but nothing taught me more than when I started my own business. I had to learn how to import goods, ship goods, deal with bad customers, threaten lawsuits, everything. And that knowledge early in their teens and their 20s will teach them to survive on their own. And then young adult external work experience. I think it's important. Everyone needs to know how to be an employee, what it feels like to work for somebody. It can be within the organization itself, but they have to work under somebody in a non-coddled environment. If everyone, that's the problem with doing it inside of an organization, you're still coddled. No one's gonna yell at the founder's child, right? They're not gonna make sure they're working hard. That's my advice on raising the right child. This is another one that nobody talks about. But have you made it a business that your child wants to join? When you go home, is all you do talk about how much stress this business is, how you can't pay the bills for it, how you lost a major customer, the rent is increased. God dang it, that energy bill just won't quit. But if you're only complaining about the business, why the heck would anyone want to join it? When you're interviewing somebody for a job, do you just vent to them about how horrible the work environment is? You got to make it exciting. Through their whole life, talk about what you're working on. Talk about what excites you. You founded this business for a reason. So what is it that you can get them excited about that they say, God, when I grow up, I want to be like Dad. I want to be like Mom. I want to join that. And then, again, you're going to bring them onto the organization, internships, whatever it is when they're young. Make that exciting. They need the real world experience, but are they doing something that's just giving them energy? Because yes, it's an internship, yes, it's teaching them, but you got to make them think for the rest of their lives, throughout their education, when they're away at college, I want to come back and I want to work in the family business. So building that foundation is something that people really don't talk about, I don't think nearly enough. It is a lifetime of work to raise a child and build a business that can survive generations. The transition. This is where a lot fell as well. But I'll tell you first, I looked at my businesses that we bought from families. Every single business was the founder not able to transition to the next generation that I've bought so far. So when I say that foundational, that's where I've seen the most failure. That 60% of failure in the stats, that's 100% in what I've been buying lately. But this one as well, this one is, I'm going to say a little bit of why our family business wasn't able to transition to the second generation. It's the idea that kids are not clones. We're going to do things differently. And we'll talk a little bit about that. One thing, when you're going to raise a child to come into the next, into the business as the next generation, you have to start that foundation work as early as you start that work with raising your son or daughter. You have to tell everybody, this is a family business. My child will be running this business. I'm excited for when he joins the business. Because you might have number twos that dream of being president, that dream of having a higher level. And if you don't give them the notice that this is a family business and not your typical business where they can rise to that level after you retire, you're going to build a lot of animus inside of your organization. So that's why I have Simba being held up. That's the king saying this is the new ruler when he becomes of age, or when his uncle kills me. But that's a different scenario. But you have to prepare your company as a family business. Let them shadow you. This is one that becomes difficult as well. And I'm going to say be vulnerable is another one. There's closed door meetings you have. There are concerns you have. Your business is not perfect. There are cracks in it. You have to let them see that. As they're joining the organization, they have to see all elements of that. So you're going to have those people you've been having meetings with for 30 years that say, hey, I want to sit down, I want to tell you something that's going on, and I don't want anyone else to know about it. You got to say, all right, my child's coming in, he's going to join this meeting, she's going to join this meeting. None of those closed door meetings should happen, because when you leave, they don't know that those conversations occurred. They don't know what those issues are, and those are the deepest level of organizational issues. So you have to include them. It was actually Amazon did that really well with Bezos. When Bezos had his number 2 come up, there was not a meeting he would have. He wouldn't allow any meeting without his number 2 there, his soon-to-be president. He said he sits in on everything. Allow decisions and failures to occur. I know you know how to do it right. You've been doing it for 20 or 30 years or 40 years. Of course you know the better decision. They're gonna make mistakes. You only learned because you made those mistakes and you solved them. And you fix a situation. You find the problem and you fix the situation. So you gotta let them do the same. I read once that you got promoted because you could do the job better than everyone else. So of course, when you bring someone below you, they're not gonna do as good a job as you. That's why you are where you are. For Mars, this is my good friend Forrest Mars. I don't actually know him, but he has an interesting, they're a 4th generation, he was in the 4th generation actually for Mars. And Mars has been a family-owned company ever since the start, which is extremely impressive. He got his education, his BS from Yale and his MBA from NYU. He went on, he started out as a financial staff officer, kind of more low position. Then they asked him to oversee the build of a plant over in the Netherlands. Then after that, he became a managing director, and then VP, and then finally co-president. So they really brought him up through the organization. They let him see all the elements, they let him grow with it. It's important. Support their authority. This is another one where I see a lot of issue develop. Yes, you are the leader. You are the one everyone goes to. And as this transition occurs, you have to step back into the shadow. And that's hard because that has never been your personality. You've always been at the front. You've always been making the calls. But you have to let them come in, and if somebody, again, comes to you and says, hey, I need your thought on this, if they, I'm bringing in my child, and you let them make a decision. And if you don't like their decision, maybe you pull them aside afterwards and you say, hey, I don't know if you were thinking about that right. Consider these things. Don't undermine them in front of everybody. Talk to them, coach them, be that coach for them. Make sure there's clear authority without bypassing. I still see this in our business. There's an old guard that's been around the business for 30 years, a lot of executives in my company. And they love to go around to my father-in-law and say, hey, I'm concerned about this, I'm concerned about this. And sometimes he answers it, and sometimes he doesn't, and passes it down. But the more you can pass that down, the more you create that clear line of authority for people. And they will understand and grow to respect that. Again, let them lead. There's gonna be a different leadership style. You raise that child now to be able to run a business, to have independent thought, to question everything. They've been raised in a different generation with different technology. You're gonna have to let them lead in their own style. It won't be your style of leading. It will feel uncomfortable. It'll feel like it's not the way things should be. But you do have to sit back and see if it works out for the organization. Encourage innovation. When I first joined Thunderbird, I said, we need to do online marketing. And the entire room laughed at me and said, guys, we're in manufacturing. We don't do online marketing. This isn't, a retail business. I said, give me a shot, give me a few $1,000s. We now generate the majority of our leads through online marketing. It is our biggest new customer revenue channel. So it might not feel right. Again, it might be something no one's ever done before, but the technologies are moving so much and so fast that, and now post-COVID, unfortunately, those in-person conversations and sales meetings don't occur anymore, that you have to think about what's new. And they have their feet to the ground there. Again, generational strategy shift. This could be that Nintendo major shift towards gaming. It can be minor shifts. So there's a lot of refocusing that might occur. One of the things I'm looking at in the business is drones and manufacturing plastic components for drones, because we need to, in the defense world, we make a lot of defense parts, you have to manufacture in the US. There's a big defense buildup right now. So that's nothing. No one's ever talked about making a drone blade in carbon-infused plastic injection molding before. but it's something we'll be pursuing, and it could be a great new opportunity. So there's going to be strategy shifts that, again, might not feel comfortable, but could be the right path for the business. I'll talk quickly on this because it doesn't impact many people, but governance structures in later generations. When you get to that third, fourth generation, again, that culture needs to be infused. What Irina had said, it becomes more and more critical as you get later in your generations. You're going to have more mouths to feed. The Gucci situation, you have endless proliferation of families, really. You could be up to 20 people that were from that founder. To do that, you're going to need to have a larger business with more roles. If it's still the same size it was when the founder was there, you can't feed all those mouths. So the business has to grow, and you're going to have to find different roles. One way is through boards. You see that a lot with the larger family businesses. They create boards, and then you have professional management. You say, all right, we're no longer going to have a family member running the company. The family will be on the board of directors and guide the strategy from there. The major reason you fail, and last point on things, is heritage. Nobody is perfect. The founders of our country were drunk and ornery. But we idolize them. We idolize the ideals that they left for us, and we hold them to the highest regard. Yes, the founder of the company might not have been great. He might have had character flaws, but you need to idolize those values that allowed that company to be founded and grown. You need to write them down. You need to put that founder's photo on the wall, on the highest wall, and tell everybody how great he was and what started this company. It's important because that's the culture, that's the core of the culture that keeps it moving. So in closing, again, the one thing I gotta say is it does start with you. You have to look at, do you wanna start a family business, or do you wanna grow a massive empire that sells off and supports everyone for generations after that? If you wanna grow the family business and make it a family business, make sure you're raising your kids proper, and you gotta start that early and make it exciting for them. Don't come home every day and complain. Come home and tell them exactly why this motivates you to go to work to every day. Prep the organization. Don't lie to everyone. Don't lie to your executives. Let them know this is a family business. Your children will take over. That way they will support your child versus try to undermine them. Transition slowly but completely. A transition should take years. 5 years, 10 years even if needed. You slowly step back further and further and just provide a supporting role to your child and let them lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, very much. Really appreciate that. Some great insights into generational opportunities. It's very interesting. You mentioned you have a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an 8-year-old. I couldn't help but think about the fact I have much older daughters, all daughters. That's its own challenge, right, Stat? Dads understand that. And I remember saying to my wife many, many years ago, we have to worry when our first child has their first opinion, because that changes the chemistry of what's going on. And it was also interesting, I read in the paper the other day, for those of you who may be aware of this, and I know we have some representatives here from Pan Gregorian, which is the Greek Restaurant Association of New Jersey, New York, and Chicago. I thought it was very interesting that there's actually concern in New Jersey. New Jersey is known for Greek diners. My dad owned one as well in Princeton. And that there is actually a significant reduction in that generational opportunity because younger generations are not necessarily interested in going into the diner business. And what was once kind of taken for granted is no longer the case. There's also perhaps better economic opportunities for some of these diners with the advent of Wawa and Quick Check, who are offering insurmountable amounts of money for land leases to make a business decision to not to proceed. But I thought it was interesting that the state of New Jersey has even recognized that, and I understand there may be some legislation afoot to try to create some grant opportunities to try to keep New Jersey diners in New Jersey, because it's kind of a part of really our history, if you will. So I thought that was very interesting. So thank you for sharing that information. Our next speaker is Dr. Evelyn Bilias-Lolis. I say on her behalf that leadership is not just about strategy, it's about resilience, clarity, and the ability to perform under pressure. Dr. Lolis brings a powerful human dimension to leadership with decades of experience across mental health, education, and wellness. Her work focuses on how individuals and organizations sustain success in demanding environments. She's guided institutions, led national conversations on well-being, and continues to bridge research with real-world application. Her message is one every leader in this room needs to hear. And before I introduce her, I want to compliment, again, the Kotrotsios family for their visionary idea to bring someone like Dr. Lolis to an event like this. We're here talking about business and opportunities and economic development, but I think one of the things that you heard from many of the presenters is stress and the concerns and pressures that go on with business and business development. So what a great opportunity to have someone to come in of your stature and experience to share with us perhaps some strategies on how we could better cope and deal with that in the future and things that we could be concerned about, but again, have some strategies to be able to deal with. So Dr. Lolis, we thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kalispera. What a wonderful and rich morning. I'm so grateful to be here today. I'm grateful for this invitation, for the opportunity to address all of you, to the Kotrotsios family, who is, for anyone who does not know them personally, truly a gift to the Hellenic community at large, and certainly a gift in this arena. I couldn't be more grateful. I'd like to start by saying I'm very thankful that my husband wasn't here for the energy discussion, because if anyone knows the litmus test to any relationship, it's two things: how you string your lights on your Christmas tree, but that's not an issue anymore, and getting the temperature right at home. So that's an ongoing battle. I'm going to throw what in baseball terms would be a change-up. I'm going to pitch a change-up for you right now from the tempo of the morning. We're going to talk about success, and what does success really mean, and what does it look like today? We're in the advent of AI. We're in the advent of the future of the workforce being really unknown, rapid evolution, and a major disruptor, not in a negative way, but a major disruptor to the cognitive, social, emotional development of young people and adults, right? But especially the younger generations. I represent Fairfield University. I'm the dean of the School of Education and Human Development there, and we license all the mental health professionals, educational leaders, and teachers, actually. So we talk a lot about the future of work. And in today's time, definitely post-COVID, as we all have grappled with the changes that were brought forward, what we might have reflected on in hindsight, and what we might have learned, what we might have forgotten already, is this notion of well-being, and what does it mean to be well? We live in a time in the world where we are genuinely the most advantageous in terms of advances in healthcare and offerings of health, medicine, science, right? Yet we're the most afflicted generation at this time. Meaning, we live in a time where we have access to all of this technology, state-of-the-art care. We have all these resources at our fingertips, but the rates of depression and anxiety are tremendous. There's an epidemic of loneliness in this country by the Surgeon General, coined just a short 2 years ago. And we're the most disconnected we've ever felt. So I always look forward to the opportunities to really reframe how we think about success. Now, here's a spoiler alert. I am a middle-aged woman. I know it doesn't look that way, but I really am. And so it's really interesting at this point in life to be able to reflect on, what is career? What is the value of the work that we do? What is the value of what we amass at the end of the day, right? And what does it cost us? What I wanted to talk about too, and I am grateful to be able to write a wellness column for the Hellenic News of America. That has been such a great and fun opportunity. I blend psychological science with ancient Greek wisdom. Who would have thought, right? We're just finding in science what the ancient Greeks knew such a long time ago. But there's a lot to be said there, right? Currently in our environment, we grow up, and our children, more importantly, grow up in this pressure cooker, right? Where we're constantly looking at outcomes. If you're a good leader, you're goal-oriented and you're looking at outcomes. And we measure these outcomes through deliverables: sales, salaries, recognitions, growth, expansions, promotion, right? There are all these external metrics that are telling you how well you're doing, right? There's also social metrics. I'm not going to go into that here. But all of these metrics are looking into the future, right? Striving and reaching for what's next. So I say that the main weight, the main metric here, the main metric for this success is really the weight of what you achieve. Whether it's financial, whether it's social, whether it's the weight. It's how much and how heavy, how impactful, right? Aristotle was the one who brought the term eudaimonia, right? And it's superimposed on today's notion of success, where we're thinking about a life of meaning, virtue, and full expression, full alignment of what an individual's gifts and talents are, God-given and manufactured, and where they meet their purpose in the world. When we think about the science of well-being, which is a very fancy way of saying the science of happiness, we've come to find, at least in the field in the last decade or two, that very little, a smaller percentage of the variance than what anyone would really think contributes to happiness is that piece that is solely what makes me feel really good right now, right? We've studied it from a longevity standpoint, and at the end of the day, it really is being able at each point in your life where you're ripe and entering into a new era to be able to continue to find value and purpose and to be able to share it with other people. That probably ranks above almost everything else. So yes, we are very much a fan of the things that make us feel good instantly, right? For me, it's like a Snickers bar. I'm only kidding. It could be financial. It could be social rewards. You know, how many likes you get on social media. But at the end of the day, that's all empty. If we're really not thinking about how is my life and its purpose and my gifts aligned with what the world needs. And if we can raise children in today's society thinking about that in advance, how do my gifts, my purpose, and what has been given to me align with what the world needs, then we will see that some of these statistics about depression, anxiety, inflammation, disease, all these things that we're constantly in the news and learning about actually might take a different turn, right? Currently, about 1 billion people live with a mental health disorder. 50% of workers report burnout, anxiety, and depression. And mental health is actually the leading cause of disability in the workforce. So really thinking about into all the business, all our business friends in the room, I know I'm in minority here in terms of not being a corporate person, but this is really important about for your organization. These statistics directly impact you. The wellness of the people around you directly influence the output of your company, directly influence the culture of what you're trying to produce, your return on the vision that you're trying to put forward, right? And so it's a larger picture that we're really trying to achieve. If you want people to be there, to perform optimally, produce for you, execute, and stay or elevate, right? Then that's a very intentional environment that we need to be making and architecting. I think, Irina, you were speaking to that earlier. In the literature, we call this sustainability, professional sustainability. What keeps me in my career path or in my work feeling aligned, feeling strength and renewal, even when I'm stressed, having the resilience to be able to move forward, even during the roughest of times. For example, COVID, which took us all by storm, for example, right? Our ability to persist, our ability to be resilient doesn't really stand on whether or not we experience pleasure. It actually stands on whether or not we experience adversity and how we deal with it. meaning that that stress is necessary for us to test the system. The stress is the test, actually. I didn't mean to rhyme. But to test the system in a way to say, is this worth it? Can I endure it? What do I learn about myself? What do I keep? What do I release? And if we can approach systems that way, then we're more likely, and so are the people around us, to look at our capacity from a long-term perspective. How do we function effectively, right? How do we adapt to change? And how do we maintain high-quality performance while holding well-being, right, in tandem with that? That's a whole lot to try to do all at once. But I think if we care about our society and we care about the people in it, if we care about our children and the next generation, we need to start thinking about these. And these things aren't, these aren't left to just certain people or certain sectors, you know, of society. We need to think about, you know, what COVID did really beautifully was wipe out our nurses, our healthcare professionals and physicians, our educators and mental health workers burned out in strides after that, right? And if people don't want, young people particularly, to enter these professions because of a fear of just really not being able to sustain, imagine what our society would look like. Imagine what our society would look like if no one ever went into teaching, where we all started in a K-12 system. I don't care how fancy or how, you know, how successful we may be, right? Imagine if you need attention and there's a nursing shortage, which there is, by the way, right? So we want to create environments where we're thinking about all of us, larger environments, and where we allow the opportunity for ourselves to be well, but also give space to the people around us to honor what that means for them, right? No one is coming to your organization, no one is coming to your meeting in a silo. They're coming with whatever happened 12 minutes ago on their way, in their commute. They're coming with what happened last night, whatever stress or strain was going on at home. Like, we're showing up as whole people in these workplaces. And I know it's really easy to separate the work from the person, but what organizational psychology tells us is that, you know, if you do that and compartmentalize that way, then you're really not going to generate and you're not going to produce someone who is able to give you capacity and to give you scale, because really you're not acknowledging them. You're not acknowledging all of them, right? And I've written a book. I wrote it during COVID, and it's about women in career and all the mental load and how the mental health issues during COVID affected women disproportionately. And when we were thinking with the publisher, like, where should this go? And I said, it needs to go to corporations just as well as it needs to go to, you know, academic settings or institutions, because everyone works with women, right? See, and some of these women, obviously, we're leaders, we're everywhere in the workforce. But if you're a woman and you're a career woman and a mother, that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun on a day-to-day. That's a circus that needs to be managed that, unless you're in it, you can't even understand. And if you're in the frying pan with young kids, more power to you there, right? We've all been there. But as attuned individuals, as attuned executives, as attuned business leaders, we need to recognize that our people come to us whole, right? And that we want to be able to acknowledge them and support what they need to give us what's optimal. That's where sustainability lies. Instead, we fall into this anxiety performance loop, right? Where anxiety is a great motivator, right? But it fuels overperformance, and then the overperformance intensifies the anxiety, and then we're rewarded in the short term. Nothing rewards you more in the short term than the behaviors that lead to burnout. Think about that for a minute. The behaviors that lead to burnout have immediate rewards before you burn out, because burnout's not a day, right? To being constantly on call, responsive, to working very, very long hours, to sacrificing your own health, your appointments, everything else, to being the yes person, to being the person that volunteers, I'll do that, I'll spearhead this, I'll take on one more thing. All these things, businesses love these things, organizations love these people, these are our people. And you get reward, reward, reward until you burn out. And then you're not good for anybody anymore. Not the system, not your home. So this is a really important climate, I would say. It's an organizational climate insight that what is really, really rewarding in the short term can be the detriment of your vision in the long term. So just to pay a little bit of pay attention to that. And chronic levels of anxiety, being adrenaline driven, we're all adrenaline junkies, right? Your body's, central nervous system is meant to, the fight or flight response, or freeze, fight, flight, or freeze, it's like you see a bear in the woods and your body just sets off the alarms and it tells you what to do to survive. That's not a state that you want to be in for a very long time. Yet here, especially in this part of the world, in this part of the country, this part of the world, we push that state as if it's normal to be there. That anything that falls back to a baseline that might resemble something normal, healthy, balanced, might be misinterpreted as slacking, not motivated, right? But what happens when your adrenals are constantly over-functioning is then you start to see the gateway to almost every disease, right? Which is inflammation in the body. There's direct correlation there. Okay. One of the riskiest things, and this is the psychology in me, I'm the psychologist in me, so I'm sorry you're getting a psychologist now. But when success becomes someone's identity, that is probably the riskiest thing. When a narrowly defined success becomes someone's identity, that is a very risky place to be from a developmental and an emotional standpoint. Because what happens is, if we're only putting our chips in one place, or we're hedging our wages on one thing, and our children are watching us do this, right? Then what happens if something happens to that one thing? What happens if life happens and that thing no longer exists? Perfect example, athletes. Most athletes, do we have any athletes in the room? Anybody became college sports or really, yes, right? How much of your identity was being an athlete, right? These little kids today, my girls are 12 years old, trying to convince me to fork over boatloads of money for volleyball clinics, right? This is the nature of today. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're not even in high school yet. But if you don't, you're behind, right? So we're starting these identities and putting all this money and all these resources into one faction of their identity, right? And you get the athlete that gets an injury and is out for the rest of the season, or is out from the sport, period. Or you get the athlete that has the longevity in their career and they peak, where the body starts changing and they're no longer able to play the professional sport. What happens to them? They get a real disintegration of identity, because all of their identity, or the largest part of that identity, was that role. That can happen to any one of us, whether the role is I'm an executive, I'm a psychologist, I'm a mom, I'm a one thing. Whatever this one thing is a risky thing, because then we don't embrace the wholeness of who we are. And then we also model that for generations below us, so that if life happens and takes us out of the game, no pun intended, right, in some way or another, then we're risking kind of this rupturing of the identity, right? And we also see this too with women who are career driven, and then they have a child and say, I'm going to stay home now. I'm going to raise my child. This is what I've wanted my whole life. And then slowly, as they enter into that part, some of them really struggle because their entire identity has been something else prior to that, right? These are just cues to be visible on in the people around you. I love these ancient Greek virtues, arete and sophrosini, right? The ancient Greeks, arete is like excellence of character in your actions, excellence over time, of your character, not of one arm of something that you're doing, right? And sophrosini means self-mastery in all things in moderation, to be able to master yourself, to be able to calculate what you need, how long you need to perform, when do you need to break, what does that look like? Because all of that gives you your most best, vital, creative, performing self. I always joke, my family teases me because I'm a napper. Is there anybody else in the room who likes to literally nap, right? How much guilt in this country? I mean, I get nap shamed every single day, right? I tell my children, mommy has to go decompress now. They understand. I'm like, now they repeat this to people. My mommy is decompressing. But I love going to Greece because guess what? It's 1 o'clock. It's my favorite time. And I don't even feel guilty about it when I'm there. It's so funny. If I do it here on a Saturday, I feel like the worst mother in the world and the laziest person on the planet, right? But if I do it in Greece at 1 p.m., it's just normative. It just says life needs to pause or it needs to get a little more quiet. You don't necessarily have to sleep, but you do have to be quiet because they get mad at you if you're not in Greece at that time, right? Don't call, don't do anything, just be quiet, right? And so, like, you think about these things, and we've gotten so far away from it, but all the research that I've read, taught about at the university, written about in studies, I would leave you with this, thinking about what modern wealth looks like, right? Modern wealth, what the literature tells us, is really investing in these things that will allow you to do everything else. Research shows us that connection is isolation. I'll take the opposite of that. Isolation and loneliness is worse for your heart health than smoking 15 packs of cigarettes a day. You can look that up. Center for Disease Control will tell you that. It is worse for your heart health than smoking. And I remember during COVID, it was really interesting what was happening in Greece and what was happening in our own community. I'm from Connecticut, Lower Fairfield County. But we were shutting everything down, and my generation was trying to really behave and stay at home, shelter in place. Guess what was happening every Sunday morning at the church, though? Guess who was rebelling? Who were the rebels? Anybody want to guess? The seniors. The seniors were showing up. My husband was parish council president. He's like, they're not listening. I'm like, they'd rather be in connection and risk this than sit in isolation. It's just as bad for their health, right? So Greeks know connection and community. We do that well, intergenerationally. There's strength in medicine in that, right? Sleep. Sleep is health. Sleep equals health. You can put that down, right? We took advantage of it when we were younger, but nowadays everything shows you how much your hormones and your levels and your stress response is affected by how much quality, not just sleep, quality sleep that you get. I remember when I had just had my twin girls and I got no sleep for 3 years. I don't know what it was, right? And every time someone needs something in the middle of the night, guess who's getting up, right? And I remember going to my primary care doctor beside myself. I'm like, I think I'm losing my mind. And he looked at me, Greek doctor, the best, God bless his memory, we lost him recently. And he said to me, Evelyn, we torture captives by keeping them up all night. Prisoners of war are tortured by keeping them up all night. Sleep is health, right? So paying attention to that is super important. Practicing gratitude regularly, really that means scanning the environment and finding these moments in the day that you say, wow, I'm fortunate that happens. That's great that happens. You do that for 2 weeks, you reduce depression, anxiety, you increase your heart health, you increase the quality of your sleep. I can't tell you how many health variables are related to practicing mindful gratitude. And focusing on activities that bring us meaning and joy, activities that are creative, just as important. When COVID happened, I felt like I was living my childhood in the 80s all over again. Everyone's riding their bikes, they're baking things, they're making things, they're gardening. There was joy in that, right? Right now, if you did that on a Saturday, you might not feel productive, but research will tell you that that's exactly what you need to be doing in order to feel replenished when you get back into the workday on Monday, right? And as I finish up, going back to our Greek term, eudaimonia, right? How do we cultivate a life of meaning and virtue in full expression? Being awake in the moment is a gift. We don't know what tomorrow brings. Being awake and present in this moment together, first of all, for me, this is sacred time right now. Being able to have people gather around in a shared vision and a shared mission, to be able to sit in this space and take the time out of our days to be together and to know one another, the spirit of this expo, that is sacred, right? To recognize that this is a gift right now that we're living. To be able to take time to stop when something good happens and give it the credit it deserves. Whether it's a flower, your child said something funny and it made you laugh, like, don't just walk away from that. Sit in it for a little bit, right? The weather, whatever it is that you want to admire. Visualizing your good fortune, super important. Seeing it and is believing it. See it first in your mind. Being flexible. Grit is very important, right? That's the muscle to really persevere. But you can't do that without respect for yourself and care for yourself. And certainly you can't do that without having compassion and care for other people. If more people thought this way, the world would feel a little different, right? We don't have to be the mouse on the hamster wheel. We think that only works until we burn out. Then it doesn't work anymore. So I hope that I'll end with a quote from Aristotle. The good of man is a working of the soul in a way of excellence in a complete life. And so what I wish for you is living every day in a complete life and showing up completely. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a working lunch. There is a lot of food in the back. Please feel free to step up at any time, grab something, bring it back to the table. We have 2 more short presentations to make. Doctor, only mentioned one thing. You mentioned about napping in Greece, and I don't think you were fully transparent about that. The other reason we do that is because if you're going to go out to a nightclub in Athens or to Cavo in Mykonos, the DJ doesn't come on until 3 in the morning, so you have to sleep in the middle of the day in order to be able to make it through the night. She forgot to share that with you, but I thought I would do that. Our next speaker has a wonderful brief presentation, Dimitrios Varnasidis. He is 20 years of experience in procurement, transportation, supply chain. He's had a focus on driving operational strength. He works with many organizations to help align strategy and execution and increase efficiency and create sustainable success. So we're pleased to have him come up and join us. Dimitri, if you would please come up and make a presentation. Again, ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to grab some food in the back and drinks. Welcome, Dimitri.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I appreciate it. Special thanks to Paul and Aphrodite for inviting me. So I started my consulting company several years ago. Like you mentioned, over 20 years of experience in the industry, working for various large corporations between fleet leasing, management, and procurement. And something that dawned on me that I wanted to get into my own consulting company is that I was working on a team of 15 people, and we had a budget of $20 million, and the stretch goal of $25 million. And went in it was an $80 million budget. Went in, negotiated costs. I alone saved $9.3 million, and I helped the teammates save another $3 million. And I looked at what I made that year, and I only made 1.7% of my total savings. And it dawned on me and said, you know what? You have a drive, you have a passion, take your experience, go out and help others. You know, corporate America is great, but there's a lot more people that need your experience to do that. So I started my consulting company, reaching out to clients in various aspects and see what I can do for them. Procurement, I love procurement. I love to go in and negotiate costs, create strategies for people to say that, you know what, times are tough. Everyone knows CPI index, the COVID year is double-digit increase in cost. What can you do to help me to stay on budget? I need to expand, need to grow. More importantly, people tell me I need to stay alive. So going in and actually helping customers of creating strategies, going in and controlling costs, make sure they have the right contracts in place. and working with suppliers to keep them adhere to things. Biggest thing I've seen the last, during COVID, that we learned that supply chain was probably the most craziest times that we've ever seen in all of history. How to get products across the world when no one's being produced. So in the byproduct of that, of working with suppliers, of keeping people accountable, and actually doing certain things. So I've always loved creating strategies for clients to try to save money and optimize everything. Fleet management. I've managed fleets from as small as 50 assets to 8 to 10,000 units. My recent focus is I'm working with owner operators. I'm creating an actual program. I've created programs it's the mom and pops of the people that you don't see. It's easy for large corporations to save money because they have the dollars and they have that, but it's the mom and pops that have 2, 3, 5 trucks that are just trying to put food on their table, and actually just working with them and making sure they have the right things in place, the programs, make sure they have safety and risk mitigation in place. So find a little passion point to help the mom and pops and the small organizations to really try and save money and to keep their costs down so they can expand their business. I'm gonna jump around a little bit because we're pressed on time. During the transition of my life, I had a friend that a financial advisor, as I'm building my consulting company, introduced me to some products, and I've always found myself very savvy with finance and strategies. But I was introduced to actual products and solutions that, tax-free retirement, indexed accounts, make sure you have your consulting clients on building wealth and preserving wealth. And these are things that this information was so important to me that I want to make sure I teach every single person in the middle America, to anyone, even businesses, that how to create your businesses, how to make sure you're protected in the event that something were to occur, that your business can succeed without you. Can you actually grow your money and become your own bank? So just growing my consulting business to large heights and make sure that I'm attracting the right clients to help maximize their efforts and control their costs. So next steps forward of making sure I'm partnering, aligning with like people that are looking to strategically partner with me and make sure that we have, key things and how I can help you grow your business. How can I help you create wealth and mitigate costs and price increases? So that's all I had. I wanted to keep it short. Thank you everyone for having me. Appreciate your time.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again, Dimitri, very much for that presentation. Our last presentation is a group of individuals from Provident Bank. Provident Bank has been a magnificent supporter of the Hermes Expo for many years, so we're pleased to have an entire team here. Andrea Payazitis is the first vice president and marketing manager. She brings over 25 years of experience in retail banking industry, very committed to community engagement and also cultivating strategic business partnerships. Joining her today is Yorgo Yorgopoulos, the New Brunswick developer for Provident's Protection Plus program, who specializes in delivering tailored commercial insurance solutions that align with each client's needs. And also joining the conversation is Greg Wazalewski, I hope I pronounced that correctly, senior business consultant, not bad for a Greek guy, right? Senior business consultant at FirstServe with over 3 decades of experience. Greg works closely with financial institutions and businesses across the region, providing payment solutions that support growth across industries. So we welcome Andrea, Yorgo, and Greg to the podium. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this is the last presentation of the day, so I hope it's going to be a helpful one as well. First, I'd like to congratulate Paul and his family on the 35th anniversary of this wonderful expo. We're so happy to be here. Today we're going to talk about what may be an unpleasant subject, but an important one, and that is fraud. Fraud is real. It's not slowing down. It's getting smarter, faster, and more targeted to businesses and consumers like you and I. There are check fraud and ACH fraud hitting companies every single day, and the impact can be immediate and costly. So let's talk about a product that's available through your bank's online banking and mobile banking platform, and that's called Positive Pay. Okay. Do I hit this? No, the wrong button? Which button am I hitting? Is that it? No. Which button am I hitting? Is there no other screen? Oh, here we go. Sorry. Okay, so the risks and preventions for your business and the small business is fake payment requests by email or text, okay? The electric company is not going to text you and email you that your payment is past due and they're going to shut off your service, or else send us the money by PayPal tonight, or else your electric is going to get shut off, okay? That's fraud. Please don't fall for it. Check fraud and mail theft, urgent payment scams, like I just mentioned from the electric company, is very popular. And what you can do to reduce the risk is to segregate the duties to those that have access to your online banking, right? Maybe you have someone, if you're initiating wires, someone initiates the wire, someone else approves them. Put limits in place to reduce the risk. To protect your business, you want to always verify any changes. Use what we call dual approval. Again, one person enters and the other person approves it. And slow down the urgent request. The biggest thing I can say is to please protect yourselves, especially from the email and text scams that are out there. My business is, unfortunately, we have people calling every day. I think I've been scammed. I think I've been scammed. So if that's the case, please pick up the phone, call your local banker, even if it's not Provident Bank, and just get them involved before it's too late, okay? Next, I'm going to introduce George Georgopoulos, who will tell you how you can be a victim of fraud also through your insurance. Hey, George.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sure a lot of you do not like dealing with your insurance. I'm on the commercial side, business side. Today I wanted to talk about insurance fraud and misrepresentation for it. A lot of times we see that, and I specialize in food services insurance, so a lot of times that I come across a lot of their policies, I will see many times that they are being misclassified. Their employees are being misclassified as well, and in the event of a claim, the claim can be completely denied. And that's what we don't want to happen. We don't want, everyone to dislike insurance for that reason. We want it to be there for a reason. So I was just going to share a few stories that I have from my side. Help out a large Mexican restaurant in Bergen County, and good friends of mine, they just wanted me to review their policy. They do about $6 million a year in alcohol sales with their food. After going through their policy, they did not have any liquor liability coverage at all. So they were one liquor claim away from potentially being shut down due to that. Just from an agent from California saying, I can cut your insurance costs in half, he sure did that by taking out that coverage. And it could have potentially shut their business down. Another one that I had was a restaurant which unfortunately burned down. And on their policy, they had coverage for sprinklers. They let the insurance carrier know that they had sprinklers, but there wasn't any sprinklers there. And that was due to the agent just trying to come in and get them a cheaper cost on their policy. In the event of that fire, they were not covered and could not rebuild that restaurant. Had to take some settlements and go somewhere else to open up. And then the last one was workers' comp claims. We have seen numerous times where employees are being misclassified. And, for example, for food manufacturers, they put everybody as an office worker on that workers' comp policy just to have it cheaper. And when that happened, there was an injured employee on the manufacturing line. Claim was not covered. And these are things that we want to prevent from happening. Again, this is from, people coming in trying to just try and get you cheaper costs. We don't want to make that happen for you. So, if you see me around, I'll give you my card and would love to review your policies for you. Thank you, and I'm going to introduce Greg now from Fiserv.
Well, I'll try to be short and sweet. Paul and Aphrodite, thank you so much for the opportunity. Congratulations on 35 years. Since we're talking about fraud, How many of you out there own a business? Okay. How many of you that own a business take card payments? How many of you have ever been suspected of a fraudulent card or a chargeback or something along those lines where that card is disputed? Okay, many of us. That card is disputed, and that's not disputed by the processing company, whether it's Fiserv or another processing company out there. That's disputed by Visa, MasterCard, Discover, because they identified a risk with that particular card or that particular transaction, that they want to do a further evaluation of what that card is and what that charge is for. Okay, and sometimes your business. What I can say is my company, Fiserv Payment Solutions, we are one of the largest processing companies in the world, and we have many different systems to secure your business and to secure your customers' card data. The more, what I can tell you and what I'll end with is the more information you can collect initially from your customers at the time of sale, the better you're protected and the better they're protected. So protect yourself, find the right fit, the right company for you and your business. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was billed earlier when I made the opening remarks as a seminar to learn about business development, AI, franchises, and may not have been intentional, but I think by default, we've learned one thing from the speakers today. As you heard them speak, from Minister Propapas, who spoke about the morphing of the economy in Greece from what we thought of was really oil and vegetables to 66% energy and technology and mineral-based manufacturing. Sal Retorto, who spoke about the energy needs and the supply chain issues that are as a result of that. Irina, who spoke about scaling and working with everyone and how things can fall apart and you have to be flexible to adapt to change. Mike Bolos, an acquiring company that changed, and again, he used the words adapting to change, as did Dr. Lolis, who talked about coping with change. Dimitrios mentioned again change and adaptation, and of course our speakers from the bank also spoke about adapting to new technology, security risks, and fraud. The underlying thread in all of these conversations really talked about recognizing, promoting, recognizing, prompting, and adapting to change. That's an important, I think, fundamental common thread in all the conversations that came today. We hope we were able to excise some good information out of that. If there's any questions for any of the speakers who remain here, please feel free to grab them. We've kept you quite a bit longer than we expected. We apologize for that. Enjoy the food and drink and the camaraderie from this event. Thank you.